Welcome to Dil Ki Recipes on your favorite social media platform. Hi, I'm Dr. Sheeza Mohsin, executive coach, relationship expert, and your coach in this virtual space to support you and your Desi family in America. If you identify as being a person of color, a minority, and having some form of bicultural identity, a major goal of putting this information out is to help you realize you're not alone in this journey. If you identify as a Desi with cultural roots in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and surrounding areas, trying to meet your life and relationship needs and desires while embracing some beautiful elements of your cultural heritage, Dil Ki Recipes is for you. If you don't identify as a Desi, but have a warm, loving, human being kind of disposition and you want to better yourself, I think you'll find some good stuff in here as well. So let's go on with the show. Welcome to this episode of Dil Ki Recipes. I am so excited about my guest today. This is a recurring series because it's such a vast topic that we will continue talking about it. And there's a very specific intricacy of this topic of infidelity that we are going to be talking about with none other than the wonderful, warm, and special Sherilyn Siy. Sherilyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sheeza. It's a pleasure to be here again with you.
I am so excited. And, I love talking to you, especially because this is a topic that goes through a lot of people's mind, whether they're working professionals, whether they're people at home, because it's become a part of the reality of relationships that we have
Right.
to
Anybody in relationships, that's right. Yeah.
just need to be aware about, need to know more about, and be brave enough to have those conversations in their relationship, right? I know last time we talked about intimacy, and again, that's something we are going to continue talking about. But today we're talking about infidelity. There's a rising rate of that happening, and you wrote an article, a very, very intimate article about this element of infidelity that I really would love to talk about. So, Sherilyn, I'm going to give you the floor because I want to jump right in. Infidelity has become a real thing. There is all kinds of infidelity, emotional, physical. There is a lot of digital infidelity that happens as well.
Mhm.
And there are different nuances of it. Everybody experiences it in a different way. Everybody accesses those things in a different way. And it is definitely impacting couples in one way or the other. So I just want to quote one of the people that I just love, Esther Perel. She does a lot of work in this space.
I love her too. Yeah.
She talks about having an affair can be, or an affair or a connection, I want to say, because, this is in no way the goal to encourage that. But when that happens, it's the beginning of a new conversation to notice what's going on. So,
Right.
Sherilyn, welcome. And I just want to open up the space. Tell us about your article and tell me about your thoughts.
So, I mean, I have my article has a very clickbaity type of title. I'm 45, happily married with 3 kids, and I think I fell in love with my physical therapist. So it's not a therapist as in psychotherapist, but physical therapist because I went through knee surgery and I had to go through rehabilitation. And so I had an ongoing professional relationship. Really, it was a very professional relationship with my physical therapist who I had to see once, twice a week, for across several weeks. And what happened was that I was surprised because this is a young guy who is probably half my age. And I just was so surprised by the attraction that I felt for him. Now, I just want to be really, really clear. My therapist was very professional. So it was really nothing on his end. But like Esther Perel said, these kinds of dynamics, like an attraction outside of marriage, really reveals more about ourselves than the other party. Like, so that's the conversation I think we need to have is like the person who is going through that dynamic needs to look inside himself or herself.
I am so, so glad you're talking about it with such beauty because it's that conversation with oneself. I cannot tell you the number of times, and it's not really a judgment, but just a part of the journey that we're part of. That
Right.
I've spoken to so many clients, so many people in general who have noticed this urge of wanting that relationship or feeling very drawn to the idea of another person, whether it
Right.
is to have intimacy with, whether it is to be in a full blown relationship with. Those thoughts do cross people's minds. And I tell my couples all the time when I'm trying to give them space that, you are acting on it and thinking about it are two different spaces, and it's really important.
In your practice, how can someone attracted to a person outside the marriage, how can they acknowledge that or process that attraction without feeling shame?
It's a very good question. Only the emotionally mature are aware enough to notice it. I don't know if most people even acknowledge to themselves that there may be that attraction or they're feeling something that they need to manage.
Because it's so taboo, right?
It is so taboo. And also remember, this is not just biased to, before I used to think it's biased to the South Asian community. I started working with East Asian clients and I'm like, okay, it's an Asian thing. And then I realized, no, it could be an Asian thing. It could be a religious thing. Those things are the marriage model is a very sacred thing in faith
Mm-hmm.
also and in
Right.
cultures as well. So admitting that a thought crossed your mind, it's like a shame guilt situation because you have a partner involved. You could hurt somebody's feelings. Here we're just talking about a thought. We're not talking about action. So a lot of times the conversation comes up and of course, I have to make sure and I make sure that there is space held for it without judgment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the feeling is so strong. It's so funny because my daughter, she's 15, and she saw because she surfs the internet. She saw the BuzzFeed article, the title. She's like, "What's this, mom?" I said, "I wrote that. You want to read?" And then she read the title. She says, "I'm scared to read it." She said. I said nothing happened, but
You
yeah,
know,
there's that taboo feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Sherilyn, I
Mhm.
just so appreciate writers like yourself. And I feel that that's the arts and writing. They feel that your population is so ahead of the game. When you are just sharing something vulnerable, I cannot tell you how therapeutic it will be to so many people listening whose minds have had those thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't act on it, but just to know that they're not alone and they're not
Right.
just bad people, that they thought about something. And we're talking about thinking. So I want to highlight that idea of the idea that crosses your mind sometimes. It's so interesting. Couples will talk about this idea, and this is so scary to even admit. So you doing that just gives so many people that support to think, okay, I am a good person. Good people have thoughts. Everybody, it could be an error. It could be something you have to manage, but it's not inhumane to think those
Yes.
things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, have you seen your couples talk to each other openly, and does it really deepen the trust between them? Or, I mean, how does that you work out?
So it's really interesting because I have noticed my couples who are very, very secure and strengthened in their relationship. So they've been working with me for a while. And I will tell you, I live vicariously through them because when they've worked on their relationship, they're thriving. And the kind of conversations they have are just so powerful. I will tell you that when they're in the beginning stages and one partner is feeling insecure in the relationship, that's really not the time. Timing is a lot in
Mhm.
therapy and even in conversations. A lot of times, I see that happen more in my South Asian couples where they feel that just because they are married, they can have these unfiltered thoughts. And I call it vomiting of ideas to their partners. And I'm like, please be careful. You cannot unknow this stuff. And it's going
Right.
to mess with your head. So you have to be responsible with what you're sharing with your partner. Now, when they are so secure, they can have the most powerful conversations. So it depends on where they are in the journey in the relationship. So when a partner is feeling insecure, really that feeds into the insecurity. There's always like a difference in a couple's dynamic, right? One person is an introvert, one person is an extrovert. One person is very dynamic and draws a lot of attention. One person is a lot more timid. But I will tell you that there is no formula, especially in the numbers and oodles of couples I have, because I specialize in this space. A lot of people will think, well, it's the extroverts who end up in these situations. Nope.
Not really, yeah. Yeah.
Introverts, extroverts alike.
It
It's,
doesn't
it's
matter.
something that happens. And yes, the answer to your question, very few couples have the strength. And it depends on how much they have grown together and they trust each other to have this conversation.
Right. I guess I feel very lucky in that respect. And you know, if you read the article, you will see Charles there and his response because I was open about it. I mean, that's probably another element to why my attraction helped me grow, help us grow as a couple, me and Charles. Because you will read in that article that he was very supportive of me, like feel your feelings, he told me.
That
But
is beautiful. I love Charles. He is so cool. I will tell you, I've met so many people. Charles and I connected with the Harvard group, and Charles is like an amazing human being. He's like the aspirational husband that can feel secure enough to know I bring value to the table, and it's
right. I
okay for
mean, I
you to
cannot
feel.
imagine somebody else responding that way to me. And this is not in the article, but I want to share like early on in our marriage, I almost had an occasion where I almost had the chance to have an affair, not an affair, but the
To start
extramarital
something,
something. I don't
yes.
know, extramarital something. So I came home after that event and I said to him, I was open about the whole thing. I said, you know, there was this period during the time I was away that I think could have happened. I said, would you like to know? I asked him, would you like to know if I had an affair? I was so surprised by his response. He said, if something happened, if you did something, you know, that's on you. I don't need to know because I don't want the affair or the extramarital whatever to have power over me. I thought like, wow, okay, that's an interesting response. I always thought one spouse does something, of course, doesn't the other person want to know? Because I would want to know. You know, I thought I was thinking from my perspective.
I just love that you shared that and you don't know how powerful it is because I work in marriage. A lot of my clients, they may come to me in executive coaching, but you know, marriage is a tough relationship. People are so scared to talk about it because they don't want to jeopardize whatever good is left. And one of the reasons I invite you over and over again is to normalize. Today, in the cancel culture, which I'm not a fan of, people are being so perfectionists in all
Yes.
relationships. So they keep cutting off people. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that all infidelities lead to repair, but I will say that so many infidelities lead to beautiful repair and the relationship is stronger. The other thing I want to validate you for sharing this, and I so appreciate it because so many of my couples are hearing, so many of my clients listen to these podcasts, right? It is so beautiful to understand that when you choose to commit to a relationship, you're committing to a person,
mm,
you're committing to trust, loyalty, and the so many non-dramatic, not social media worthy, post worthy things
mm.
that impact you on a daily basis. That non glorified version of walking with someone through the rest of your life is a commitment you make. And that means that you also have to forgive them for some silly things. And I call it our stupid moments. For the stupid moments, because you are choosing each other every day. And that's
Mhm.
a choice. You can have those sparky moments with so many people, but they're not people you build a life with. So
Right.
sparks and temporary feelings of, oh my God, this is like so amazing. When you're thinking committed relationship and loyalty, a lot of times those are not sustainable things. A lot of people's ideas on what a marriage is versus how real marriage is are very different. So I so appreciate you talking about this, and you know Charles will give him the award for being like such a model
I
husband.
know he got some fans after reading, people read my article, like, who is this guy? After, you know, I found myself, I shared the first bit of the story a while ago. And then, so after I found myself feeling attracted to my therapist, I talked to Charles. We went up to this cemetery, this hill. We're going to watch the moon together. And, you know, we weren't facing each other. We were facing the moon. And I was like crying because I really, again, like as Esther Perel said, this whole thing, this whole episode is really about me. It's not about the therapist. So I was like grieving. I was crying. I was grieving my youth. I was grieving the excitement of being young, which with this therapist, he is a mirror of my, you know, the youth that I lost. I was feeling really weak. My legs were weak after the surgery. So I was grieving all these things while crying and telling him about my attraction to this guy. And he said, it's funny that when you're telling this to me, I feel two things. I feel distant from you because your feelings are towards another person, but at the same time, I feel closer to you. So it's this ironic dynamic inside him. Like it's he feels both closer and farther at the same time. Anyway, after that, after we watched the moon, he said to me, he held me and he said, "I want you to feel your feelings, feel them to the fullest." And I'm like, oh my god, I'm so lucky to be married to this guy. And then, you know, so the therapy sessions ended, and I talked with my dear friend, my mentor, 70-year 70-year-old Luz. She's 70 years old. And I was chatting with Luz, and I was telling her, Luz, this is happening to me. What's going on with me? And she said, oh, Sherilyn, when I was your age, I also fell in love with somebody else. She said, if that guy asked me to run off and get married, I would just have dropped everything and run off with him. But the funny thing is now she says, I can't even remember his face, like she remembers the feeling, and she says, I think it's that. It's grieving your lost youth, grieving. There's something going on in you, and this other person just served as a mirror, a recipient, spark that
That's
excitement in you.
It's so beautiful because when I am doing repair work, I do with couples, it's together and separate. And in their separate sessions, that session for me is completely confidential. Their spouses, I do not follow the no secrets policy in my practice because I feel that there are certain things a person needs to process on their own.
On
And
their own, yeah.
it's only their choice when and if they share that with their partner. And when I've worked with people in that space, one of the things that I talk about and I hear them talk about is that grief. And also it's about a stage of life where we are questioning our worth and we
Mm.
are trying to find our worth through other things. When attachment plays a role, and this is not about you, but in general, there's so many complicated dynamics that are messing with our head. We're thinking that we're not enough. And
Mm.
so just holding space for that is so important. And you are super lucky that you have a partner who can do that. Most people do not have. And that's not a testament to the kind of, they're in beautiful relationships. That element may not be there. So it's so important to notice ourselves and our journey. Tell me, Sherilyn, what was the process like for you as I'm asking you about how you then did that reset or what was your thought process?
I felt once I realized what talking with my friend Luz, the 70-year-old friend, and she saying that this exact same thing happened to her. And it kind of opened my eyes like, yeah, this is not at first, because I was like deep in the crush and the attraction. I was just so focused on this guy. Like I just want to be with this guy. I just want to have coffee with him or whatever. After talking with Luz and after, my husband's really openness to embracing my feelings, I felt like, yeah, I think this is about me. So that realization kind of started, it was like a click like that, like suddenly, like I just felt like, okay, I see what is going on. Like I kind of saw myself from a distance, like I see this thing going on down here. So that tempered the attraction, and I wrote in the article, like, I think if I really knew this person, this guy, like if I really got to know him and what he likes and his personality, I probably will not like him. It's more a reflection of me. Also the therapeutic space, because our sessions were ending. Also, he was very professional with me, so it really wasn't going anywhere. Maybe that also helped. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there are two things I'm going to point out here. I say this to couples all the time. It takes
Yes.
two people to make a mistake. So
Yeah.
even if one has their head right, it doesn't happen. So it's like it takes two people to have an accident. So if one of you has their head in the right place, the accident doesn't happen. It takes two people. The other thing I want to emphasize, which I notice a lot, is the shame culture when friends encourage you to exit your marriage because this happened and your partner is really focused on repair, understands that this is something they're going through, this is something they need to end, and they
Mhm.
are fundamentally, when they're in their logical mind, they know that their marriage is the choice, but
Mhm.
in their emotional mind there's a piece of them that gets something from this dynamic. A lot of times I hear the person who has been cheated on is feeling that, but their
Mhm.
friends, if they share with them, are like, I cannot believe you're going to continue to be with this person. Like this judgment. I talk to my clients all the time when they're in their space to know that only you know your truth.
Mhm.
You know the value this person brings in your life. And yes, they made a mistake. If the mistake is not perpetual, or if this is just one part, because a lot of times this is just one challenge they're dealing with, everything else is amazing. So every situation is so different, but you had your friend and mentor to tell you that this emotion is normal. They weren't telling
Yeah.
you, oh my goodness, act on it, or oh my
Yeah.
goodness, that means your relationship sucks, that you're thinking, all of those negative thoughts, because we're so vulnerable at that time.
Yeah. Do you recommend as a therapist, like, not to repress those natural feelings? I mean, I know we talked about this before the podcast. Like you said, oh, Sherilyn, you were at the start of what usually happens. Not, I didn't go total infidelity, but you were at the start of that. So what do you encourage your clients to do, like, in terms of those natural feelings?
So when I set up with my clients to work with them as a couple, I create safety for this immediately because you know what? Now this is a reality of married life.
Mm.
You know, you have social media. You
Yes.
have more exposure to people. I work with very successful professionals. Well, guess what? They're not working in a village where they have no interaction with another human being. They're working in spaces where they are coming across dynamic people all the time.
Mm.
Dynamic, successful, attractive people all the time. Managing those boundaries and noticing your feelings is a big part of it. So when I do
Mm.
executive coaching, when I work with my clients who are mostly, if not all, successful, that's the first thing I say. Because whether I'm working with you as a couple or an individual, when I know you are married, when you are in a committed relationship, it's my responsibility to protect that in whatever way I can. So that means if you have these feelings, you need to come to my space and talk about it.
Ah, okay.
So
Yeah.
don't judge yourself. Just talk about the feeling because it is so insightful. And when they start talking, then I hear like, oh my God, Sheeza, I'm fancying this lifestyle. So many people are having affairs. So many people
Mm.
are doing this. It's so normalized in my
Mm.
group. It's, all of these are realities. So, getting grounded and choosing to work in that space where you are trying to grow perspective. I try to normalize that immediately because that's the reality. If this is what you are craving and desiring, you could interact with two people in the world. And if you're ready for that, and that would be a connection you will feel. Like you said, it's more about you and what's going on inside.
Right.
So I like to normalize that space immediately so they are able to talk about it. Because when things stay in our head, they become much bigger than they could be or need to be.
Going back to Esther Perel, she says desire thrives in when there's absence. I mean, the reason affairs are so attractive is because there's absence or difficulty to meet. There's curiosity and autonomy or independence. So these three things are three things that are usually sabotaged in a marriage where you always see each other, you're always present, everything about each other. So she has State of Affairs, I think is the book where Esther
Absolutely.
Perel talks about that. Like the setup of marriage is just so against desire. Like what is attractive in infidelity is that the absence, the curiosity, and the autonomy. So how do you put that in a marriage?
I have a workshop on this, in terms of the ingredients that keep a marriage fresh and alive. And there's
Yes.
three or four things that you're talking about that really play a role. One is here, there's this whole thing you find a person, and then that person has to be your everything.
Yes,
That's a
exactly.
lot of weight. And I will tell you, that becomes boring because if you are talking to each other, connected to each other, with each other all the time, where is the new information? The mind, we crave that newness, that curiosity. So if you
Yes.
don't have individual lives and individual things you're bringing to the table that are interesting, then you are really making your marriage vulnerable. A lot of times I notice partners realize how good this is, and then instead of appreciating and nurturing, they become controlling. So it's like, now that I have something good, I'm going to control this person. And they cannot meet anyone and they cannot do anything. And then your spirit starts dying because
Mm.
there's nothing new that is showing up. So that desire, that curiosity. And the second element is whenever you're putting something very alive on autopilot, it's going to stagnate and then it's a downward slope. So
Mm.
if you are just thinking, okay, well, I'm going to take it for granted, we just do this. If you're not bringing in fresh perspective, if you're not becoming the better version of yourself every day, every week, every month, improving yourself or contemplating things. I'm not talking for you to like have another career or something. It's just reinventing, learning, bringing fresh ideas in your relationship. It becomes stagnant. Our relationships are as good as we are, right? The person we bring into our relationships. So if you are not, Sherilyn, this interesting person who thinks about people, who has this beautiful mind, who notices things and then wants to have those discussions with Charles, he's going to be like, oh my God, my wife is so boring. So
I mean, we do talk about that. We have coffee every afternoon, and one of our reflections is like, you're not the person I married 16 years ago, and like, thank God you're not the same person. We are
eggs,
so different. Like we've every year we're growing, we're changing, and so yeah, we're like
you know,
different people.
I don't know if I'm answering your question because there's like so many multiple components in this space. But one of the ones that I definitely encourage couples to do is continue being creative and
Mm.
explore and grow as a person. Because if you're not growing as a person, the marriage you wanted and the relationship and the partner and your needs at 25 are very different when you're 45. And when you hit that magic number 50 and mature marriages, your perspective changes. All the things you had wanted are different. If you're both not keeping up with who you're growing up to be, we have a vulnerability here. And then they're going to look at other upgraded versions and be like, well, this person gets me where I am. Well, you
Yes,
have to do that work in your relationship to
mhm.
continue getting each other.
You answered my question perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, because marriage is something we treasure, but we take for granted as well. So it's
Mhm.
very important to not do that all the time. We've talked about how South Asian and East Asian cultures are so similar in marriages. And so a huge element of South Asian marriages become very mundane. Generally, in South Asian marriages, there's, a lot of things that are just like doing a lot, but we're not being present with each other. We're not connecting. We're not noticing the growth, the needs, fear in even talking about that. And I was
Yes.
wondering what your perspective was.
I grew up in a culture that is very black and white about affairs and infidelity, very Catholic, Philippines, very Catholic, but also traditional Chinese, which puts emphasis on keeping the family together no matter what happens, no matter if there's affairs or not. Infidelity is really taboo, like it's wrong, you don't engage in it. But at the same time, there seems to be this general acceptance that men, and it's always the men, I think, who will cheat. It's normal, it's accepted. And good women never get attracted to others. Once they have a ring around their finger, you never, you will only ever be attracted to your husband. So, this is the culture I grew up in. So I too am a product of that culture.
We have the same, faith is very, and culture is extremely condescending of it. And I understand it. I think a lot of times we don't notice our needs. We're so split between what is culturally needing to be honored versus
Mhm.
noticing ourselves. And then those of us who are in workplaces, you're spending a lot more time in the workplace than you are at home with your family. So a lot of times these things end up happening at places where you are super exposed, especially in couples dynamics. I notice this happen a lot. And a lot of times there's an outsourcing of certain components of your relationship. Intimacy is one of them, and we've talked about it. These end up being encounters that are taboo. So couples really don't have those vulnerable discussions about desires in their relationship.
There's just no space for that. I think about the clients that I coach. They suppress themselves. I mean, I use this came from my client. She said, I feel like a turtle. I'm just like inside my shell, smaller and smaller and smaller. And so that I think was a very powerful imagery of what happens to individuals in a marriage in our culture, in our very collective cultures. Like you put your family and your work ahead of everything, and yourself is supposed to be just invisible. There's no space.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, this is a global thing. I used to think, okay, it's just South Asians. Then I was like, okay, well, it's just East Asians as well. Then I started working with Hispanic families. Very similar, family first and Black families. Okay, very similar. You feel like you have to become your individuality. And then, so many Caucasian families, when you're faith-based, it's like, and especially, men and women who are committed, who aspire to models of good relationships and they want to be the good husband, the good wife. It's like your individuality has no room or space. In
Mm,
fact,
yeah.
if you do something for you as a person, you feel guilty. You feel like you are violating your commitment to your family, to your marriage.
You're being selfish.
Yes, if you want to go on a retreat by yourself or a vacation by yourself, saying that becomes very, very taboo. I remember years ago when my kids were little and I was talking to my family and we have these conversations, reflective. Okay, well, what is the one time that you find really, really enjoyable where you don't have to spend money? And we were all going around the room, and when my turn came, it just came out of my mouth. I was like, that 30 minutes I have, everybody's at work and school, and I am still 30 minutes away from working, just me and my cup of tea. And when all of you are gone and nobody needs me, I love that time. And they all looked at me like, really? We're
Horrors.
like, so what? And I was like, no, I mean, I love you all, but just that time for me. I'm like the order taker. Like when somebody looks at me, they need something. So I love not being.
Nobody's making any
Oh,
demands
yeah.
from
So I'm
you.
listening to my music, having my chai, reading
Mhm.
my book, and dreaming about life and all the possibilities. I love that time. And I don't think it landed well with my family at the time. Sherilyn, I want to open up the space for repair, the
Mhm.
idea of forgiveness,
Yes.
and of course, this is a multi-step process too. What I loved about your article was this whole idea of first step. It's when you feel that energy with
Mhm.
another person. And I have to make sure that I'm regulating myself and I'm honoring my partner and my relationship to be aware of that energy, because we feel that energy when we get exposed to people. We feel that energy when we get attention from people. Be responsible. And for those of us who have abundance in getting attention from people, it also becomes our responsibility to make sure that we are respectful of our and other people's relationships as we explore in that space. And it not only happens in workplaces and social settings and community, but digitally as well. I just wanted to open up that space in terms of thinking about Charles and feeling bad and wanting to make sure that you are, you're protecting him in a way.
I mean, that was very clear when I talked to him. I was at the beginning of this attraction and I didn't, I love him so much. I love our kids so much. I love the family that we have together. Me confessing that attraction was like, in a way, asking for help. Like, help me out here. I'm going through this really weird thing that I don't know what to do with. I felt I was able to turn that energy into something positive for our relationship. And he was very gracious. He embraced me with humor, good humor. Because one time he was in the city and I had therapy that day. I said, I don't think I can look at my therapist because he could probably see my feelings in my eyes. Because our eyes are very revealing. So I said, I think I should just look down so he doesn't see what's going on in me. He says, who goes to Paris and not look at the Mona Lisa? So he was encouraging me. He's like, go,
That is
go.
so adorable. He's your classic therapist. Let him know that I have just give him an honorary certification. Like he's, if I had any power. There's a difference between that admiration, acting on it. And if you can have those safe conversations, you're also telling your partner, yeah, this is entertaining, but I choose you every day. And I
Mhm.
want to say this to all the couples who have struggled with this, who have overcome this, or who are in this space is please know as you go through this, even when you're in the thick of it, and if you are struggling with something like this, and in most cases, there's very few marriages that do not have the capability of repair. Most of them actually do. Even through that struggle, if your partner didn't exit, if you didn't exit, you're in pain, but you're choosing each other, and there has to be a value, there has to be some acknowledgement of that because it's not easy. Sherilyn, what would be one way that people could reach out to you if they want to work with you, if they want to get coaching with you? What is the best way? Who are typically people who benefit from working with you? If you could share a few words before we wrap up, because we can talk
Thank
forever
you so
about.
much, Sheeza. Yeah, so I am a life and relationship coach and writer, and I work with people who want to live with greater authenticity. So I really like Martha Beck, her coaching, her philosophy and her coaching system. So living with greater authenticity and aligning our outer lives with our inner lives, our inner truth. So my work really centered about guiding people towards their own wisdom that they already have within them, and I help people navigate everything from family dynamics to challenges at work. What are the issues that they're dealing with, and to reconnect with the wisdom within them to address the issues.
We work in this space, this shared space, and I think that there is so much need to help people understand that they are beautiful, they are wonderful, we're all flawed. We need to just show up wanting to be better versions of ourselves, but at the
Yes.
same time be accepting of where we are. So, there's a lot to learn in this space. And I am just so excited for your journey. And your article is brilliant. And I just hope you continue writing about these very taboo topics that need attention, because they are bringing to light things that people are not comfortable talking about. To get someone to talk to me about this on a podcast is like close to a miracle. So I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Shiza, for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I learn so much every time we chat.
Likewise, likewise. Take care, Sherilyn. To everybody listening, please continue to subscribe on your favorite social media. This podcast will be available on wherever you listen to your podcasts. And Sherilyn, I look forward to seeing a link so people can connect with you if they want to. And we will be posting a link to your article. Everybody, have a wonderful day. Be kind to yourselves. and we will be talking soon. Please remember to keep listening and watching as part of your weekly self-care and learning ritual. You know there are lots of commonalities in our lives, relationships, in our joys and struggles. And my hope is that this material will help you expand your perspective, give you some clarity on how to think about things, and ultimately make you feel better and sorted about your life and relationships. Hope you have a fulfilling and wholesome day.